Hi there, everyone. Welcome to The Daily Gardener. I'm your host, Jennifer Ebling. It's the 8th of April. Have you given much thought to the layout or shape of your garden beds? Do they follow the natural lines and slopes of the landscape? Are they geometric, long beds with corners? Maybe you've tried a circle garden. If you're just beginning, border beds or beds anchored by a backdrop like a house or a fence are the easiest to execute and plan. Often overlooked, one thing to consider in border beds is to add some stepping stones or even a small path along the back to provide access points to make tending your garden easier. Here's today's brevities. It's the birthday of Scottish author, garden designer, and botanist John Claudius Loudon, born today in 1783. A massively popular and breathtakingly prolific writer on horticulture, John focused on serving the needs of the expanding middle class who wanted to have smaller gardens. In 1838, Loudon wrote a suburban residence with a small portion of land attached will contain all that is essential to happiness. Loudon created and published a magazine called The Gardener's Magazine. It started out as quarterly. The first issue sold 4,000 copies, and it soon became bi-monthly. Loudon used the platform to introduce a new landscape perspective, which he called gardenesque. Prior to Loudon, the prevailing landscape style was of the picturesque view. In contrast with the big picture or natural perspective of the picturesque garden style, Loudon wanted to draw attention to individual specimens, isolating them by removing surrounding plants or using geometrical beds. During Loudon's time, exotic plants, or the plant collector's garden, were all the rage. Loudon favored circular beds because they show plants so well, and they're instantly recognizable as the work of a human. It was John Loudon who said, "Any creation to be recognized as a work of art must be such as can never be mistaken for a work of nature." Loudon invented the term arboretum, and he also had some thoughts about the value of public green spaces, what he called breathing zones for cities. Loudon married writer Jane Webb. Jane was indispensable to him. After an attack of rheumatic fever in 1806, Loudon suffered from reduced mobility in his limbs. In 1825, his right arm had to be amputated at the shoulder without anesthesia, by the way. Around midnight on December 14th, 1843, Loudon was dictating a book to his wife Jane when he collapsed into her arms and died. The book, Self-Instruction to Young Gardeners. Born on this day in 1892, America's sweetheart, Hollywood legend, and lover of trees, Mary Pickford, born Gladys Marie Smith. Jump on Twitter, search for Mary Pickford tree, and you'll see images of Douglas Fairbanks and Mary Pickford planting a tree at their Pickfair estate for Arbor Day. Mary Pickford was the first to plant a tree, a Japanese cedar, in the Forest of Fame at the California Botanic Garden. There are great pictures online that you can find of that event. And if you like trivia, you may come across a question that asks which Hollywood legend used to eat flowers, specifically roses. The answer would be Mary Pickford. Pickford revealed in her autobiography called Sunshine and Shadow that as a young girl in Toronto, she would buy a single rose and eat the petals, believing the beauty, color, and perfume would somehow get inside her. Singer Katie Melua sang a song called Mary Pickford, which starts out, "Mary Pickford used to eat roses, thinking they'd make her beautiful, and they did, one supposes." Pickford also gifted leading man John Gilbert a bench for his garden. And in 1924, she said, "I do not cry easily when seeing a picture or film, but after seeing Charlie Chaplin's A Woman of Paris, a drama of fate, I was all choked up. I wanted to go out into the garden and have it out by myself." And then she said, our cook felt the very same way. Hugo von Mohl was born today in 1805, called the greatest botanist of his day in one paper. He was a German botanist. He discovered chloroplasts, describing them as discrete bodies within the green plant cell in 1837. 10 years later, he described the sap in plant cells as the living substance of the cell and created the word protoplasm. Today's poem is often considered the poem about April. It's by William Watson, England's one-time poet laureate. The poem makes April the fair daughter of springtime, and the beginning line is very memorable. Here's April by William Watson. April, April, laugh thy girlish laughter. Then the moment after, weep thy girlish tears. April, that mine ears like a lover greetest, if I tell thee, sweetest, all my hopes and fears. April, April, laugh thy golden laughter, but the moment after, weep thy golden tears. Today's book recommendation is The Writer's Garden, How Gardens Inspired Our Best Loved Authors. The book contains 18 gardens and 20 writers, and then examines how these folks tended and enjoyed their gardens. It's by Jackie Bennett, and it's fabulous. Today's garden chore is to make plans to add more berries to your garden this season. Blueberries should be at the top of your list. They're beautiful in the shoulder seasons, spring and fall, plus, hey, blueberries. Today's sweet story comes to us courtesy of John Claudius Loudon. It's the story referred to often as the Waterloo Breaches. John had written his friend, the Duke, and asked if he might inspect the Waterloo beeches. The beeches were trees that had been planted right after the Battle of Waterloo. Now, Loudon's note was kind of hard to read, and the Duke misinterpreted a few things. First, he thought that the writer was C.J. London, the bishop, instead of J.C. Loudon, the botanist. And secondly, he misread beeches as breeches and thought that the Bishop of London wanted to inspect his pants. So he wrote the bishop back, saying, "My dear Bishop of London, it will always give me great pleasure to see you. Pray come whenever it suits your convenience, whether I'm home or not. My servant will receive orders to show you so many pairs of breeches of mine as you wish. But why you should wish to inspect those that I wore at the Battle of Waterloo is beyond comprehension." Now, when the Bishop of London received this note, he showed it to the Archbishop of Canterbury, and eventually the entire matter got straightened out. But from that day forward, it became known as the story of the Waterloo Breaches. And we wouldn't have it without John Claudius Loudon. Thanks for listening to The Daily Gardener. And remember, for a happy, healthy life, garden every day. The Daily Gardener is produced weekdays in lovely Maple Grove, Minnesota. You can find complete show notes over at thedailygardener.org. And be sure to share the show with your garden friends. You can find The Daily Gardener on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And while you're over at Facebook, don't forget to join the Daily Gardener community. Just search for The Daily Gardener Community on Facebook and request to join. And finally, a special thank you to my team at Podfly Productions, where my editor is Eric Begay.